Welcome back, everybody. Drew and Brandon talking sports here on a Friday afternoon. The long-awaited Super Bowl episode, Brandon. It's finally here. 2 weeks of waiting. We're 2 days away now from the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Bengals, Rams. Rams technically at Bengals, although it is in Los Angeles in SoFi Stadium. So, you know, whatever that means. Brandon, before we get into it, how's it going?
It's good. It's good. Like you said, we've been waiting for this episode for, ever since the championship game. So it's good that we're finally at this episode. And then, obviously we'll get to the game in 2 days. So we'll see what happens. But we have a list of bets and picks that we have. So it's gonna be a good episode.
Yeah, as you can see on the screen on the left side, you can see just a few kind of joke prop bets or whatever. We'll explain them when we get there. We each picked three kind of in-game bets or whatever, in-game prop bets that are more legitimate or whatever. Still really not that legitimate, I mean, but yeah, anyways. Do you want to start with prop bets? Do you want to start with anything else or?
I think we should start just kind of previewing the game, to be honest. And then we could probably get into bets, I think. That's
Okay.
probably the best way.
We'll just start right out the gate with the most important topic. Who do we think is going to win the game?
Yeah.
I'll let you go first. Who do you think is going to win the game
Well, are we making our prediction for the
right
game,
now?
or are we just
Yep,
all
you're
right
giving
right
your
now? All
team.
right.
Yeah, you're giving your team.
All right. I've been thinking about this for a couple of days now. I'm gonna go score team and score. I'm gonna go Rams over Bengals. I think I'm gonna go 28 to 24. I believe the last time 28 to 24 was the Pats Seahawks game. At least I remember that was 28-24. But um, yeah, 28-24. I'll give a little explanation. Just I think the Rams are gonna win. Um, I just think that, and we'll pick our MVPs probably later on, but um, I think the defensive line for the Rams is going to have a huge game, as we saw the Titans did against the Bengals. Now the Chiefs really didn't do that, but at the same time, they were still getting some pressure. It just wasn't the 8 or 9 sacks that the Titans had. But I think the Rams, I mean, Donald, Miller, and Floyd, you really can't ask for a better front three than that in the league. That's honestly the best front three you could have, especially now that Von Miller is healthy. So I think they're going to be a huge game. I think Ramsey versus Chase on the outside is going to be a great matchup. We'll see. I mean, Ramsey, he seems, even though he's probably the best corner in the league, he does seem to struggle a little bit against top end wide receivers. So I'll be curious to see if he sticks with him the entire day, or maybe he doesn't flip sides with Chase, so they doesn't run around with him. I'll be curious to see about that. And then when it comes down to Burrow and Stafford, I mean, there's the argument that Burrow's technically had more experience because he's been in a national championship game. He's been they basically played the same amount of playoff games, to be honest. So they're kind of similar experience that way. But I still like Stafford being in the league for what 13 years now, 12 years, whatever it is. I like that experience. I like him and McVay. I think that they're definitely going to try and they're going to be explosive at times, but still try to be a little bit cautious. So as long as they don't have turnovers, that's the big thing for the Rams offense. No turnovers, they'll win this game. And like I said, I think it'll be 28-24. I think it'll be a close game, but I think the Bengals probably need a touchdown drive at the end, and it probably falls short.
So my prediction is I'm going the same team. I'm going Rams. It's a bit surprising. I know
Oh,
that you thought I was going Bengals.
I
I think
did.
if you'd watched the videos or our podcasts, you would assume I'm going Bengals. I'm going Rams. I'm going to go 27-24. So I'm not touching, if I was to bet on this game, I wouldn't really touch the lines. Like I think it's about -4.5 right now for the Rams. I wouldn't really touch that. I probably wouldn't touch this game at all if I was, like betting a bunch of games. I still wouldn't touch this game really. Now I'm going to go 27-24 Rams in spite of Matthew Stafford. And that's what is going to irk me about. That's what's irked me when people talk this game. Uh, the fact that if anybody seriously thinks Matthew Stafford is a better quarterback than Joe Burrow, then in my opinion, I'm really not sure what you're watching because I think Joe Burrow has in almost every metric is a better quarterback. The only metric you could probably maybe argue Stafford is just pure arm strength, which I think while it is a more talked about thing when it comes to quarterback play, in general, it's one of the more overrated aspects of a quarterback's play. Very rarely is it going to come down to does the pass have enough zip or does the pass have the distance to make it. That's really only going to matter in super tight coverage or if we're if we're trying to throw the ball 50 plus yards down the field, which, yeah, it matters. And it is very important for a quarterback to have a good arm, because that's something that I've noticed with Mac is his arm just isn't very strong at all. Arguably stronger than or weaker than some of the wide receivers that were in the skills competition at quarterback, if you watched any of the Pro Bowl stuff. But anyways, I think when it comes to any of the intangibles, I think Burrow has a huge advantage over Stafford. Leadership, balls / guts, or whatever you want to call it. Mobility. I mean, that's not an intangible, but any intangible. Leadership, toughness, guts. I think Joe Burrow has it in every single category. Now, there are clips of Stafford being, tough, if you want to call it that, but I still think in general Burrow is a tougher quarterback. And I honestly don't think Stafford has more experience than Burrow. Does he have more games in the NFL played? Yes, but they're 80 to 90% of them are in completely irrelevant situations where whether or not Stafford actually plays well is completely irrelevant. He's played in 6 playoff games, maybe 6. I think he's technically played in 1, 2, 3. This is going to be his 4th this year, and he's played in 2 playoff games in the Lions.
Yeah, so this will be his 6th.
So this will be his 6th, and this is going to be Burrow's 4th. So he's got 2 more games experience in the playoffs, and I mean, I don't think Stafford doesn't have a resume for me to say whether or not he plays better or worse in the playoffs necessarily, but my gut tells me worse. And I honestly do think the Rams have gotten to this particular spot in spite of Matthew Stafford. I don't think Stafford has gotten them to this place. They have probably the most talented defense on paper, and even without Robert Woods, they have an extremely talented offensive roster. I mean, I know Akers wasn't here the whole year, but even when Akers wasn't here, Michelle and Henderson were a very serviceable running back duo throughout the entire year. And wide receiver wise, even without Robert Woods, I mean, Cooper Kupp has been by far the best receiver production wise in the NFL this year. OBJ, since he got here, pretty much the same day that Robert Woods got here, not the exact play style, but he's filled in for Robert Woods just fine. And then Van Jefferson is, I mean, a very good wide receiver number 3. I don't think there's any getting around that. I think his offensive line is very good. I mean, Andrew Whitworth just won whatever that award is. I could not care less about that award, by the way. I heard people trying to be like, it is super relevant because you need on the field play and off. Like, I don't care. I'm sorry. It's such I mean, I don't care about any of the awards. So, don't take it from me that I don't care less about the Walter Payton Man of the Year award than the MVP award. I mean, Aaron Rodgers getting the MVP award this year is exactly why nobody should care about the MVP. Nobody should really care about any of the awards except for, I don't know. I don't think there's an award people really should care about. Maybe Coach of the Year, maybe Comeback Player of the Year if you're into like good stories, but I don't know. I mean, I think all those awards are relevant. Anyways, back to my Rams take. Yeah. Joe Burrow, even tangibly, I think has a lot of aspects that are better than Stafford. Pretty much everything other than arm strength. I think he's arguably just as accurate as a quarterback. I think mistake-wise, I think Burrow's maybe slightly more prone to mistakes, but he's cleaned up a lot recently, and Stafford is not, he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers' touchdown to interception ratio, not even close. So I think Stafford can be prone to mistakes too. I think this is going to be a game where after the game we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to say Matthew Stafford tried to give the Bengals this game today, and they would have taken it if it wasn't for the Bengals' awful offensive line, Zach Taylor not making a couple mistakes head coaching wise, whether it's clock mismanagement, a bad challenge, or simple coaching mistakes like too many men on the field here, wrong scheme there, shouldn't have been a nickel here, or whatever. I think it's going to come down to that. I think the offensive line for the Bengals is going to be a very big reason why they're not able to win this game. And I think we're going to literally say Stafford tried to give this game away. I think that's what it's going to be. And that's why I have the Rams winning the Super Bowl. If Stafford wins the Super Bowl MVP, I'd be shocked.
Well, when you were talking about that, I was just thinking of possibly something for the future, and it has to do with Stafford. And I'll be curious to know what your answer is, even though I feel like I already know what it will be. But we both picked the Rams, like we said. Let's say Stafford wins MVP, doesn't win MVP, whatever it is. But obviously they win the Super Bowl, he gets a ring. let's say he plays another 3 years. You'll be with McVay. You'll still have most of this nucleus and core together for the next 3 years. I mean, you probably should. This is your window, if anything. So again, him being with McVay with all these weapons, obviously Robert Woods back, whoever they draft in the future, whatever it is. Um, he plays another 3 years. He went 41 and 17 touchdown to interception ratio this year. Let's say he's pretty similar to that. He threw for almost 5,000 yards, somewhere around that. An 18th game might even be added. Who knows at, that third year or whatever. He's at 50,000 passing yards right now. He would have already had a ring. Who knows what happens in the next 3 years?
No,
Possible. And
no.
again, this is what I thought your answer was going to be. But is it possible that he could be a Hall of Famer one day? Because again, he's at 50,000 passing yards right now. I think he's 5 yards away. Yeah, he's 5 yards away. So he's at 50,000 yards.
Yeah.
If he goes 35, if he averages 35 and 12 or whatever the number is, touchdown interception ratio with about
Yeah.
4,500 plus yards, it's just a question. I'm not saying that I
Can
believe
he
it or
get in
not.
the
It's just a
actual Hall
question.
of Fame? Maybe, but what I mean, who I don't know. Who knows what the actual Hall of Fame is? Specifically when it comes to quarterbacks. I mean, assuming Eli Manning. Eli Manning's when is his induction year? When is he eligible? Soon,
He's
right?
been retired for 2 years now, so another
Okay.
2, 3 years.
If Eli Manning manages to get in, and if I guess if somehow Philip Rivers manages to get in, then I don't know. But my answer is he going to get in the actual Hall of Fame? I don't know. But should he be in the Hall of Fame? Absolutely not. I mean, if he does win a Super Bowl, maybe he even wins two. Who knows? I think the reason they're going to win any Super Bowls, whether it's 0, 1, 2, or 3, is going to be because of the star-studded roster. It's probably going to consist of Jalen Ramsey on defense, Von Miller on defense, Aaron Donald on defense, with a lot of good surrounding pieces. And then offensively, Cup's probably not going anywhere. We'll see what happens with OBJ. He probably doesn't stay, but maybe he does. Who knows? I mean, they'll probably if they want to find a way for the money to work, they'll find a way for the money to work. That's kind of how the NFL is. If people actually take the cap seriously, except for pretty much only a couple teams in the NFL this year, it's probably only the Saints and maybe the Packers. Get a grip on life. Last year, there were legitimate takes that I saw that the Saints were going to go 0-16 because they were in cap hell. Wow, who would have known that the Saints found a way, even $90 million over the cap, to bring pretty much every player back. So the cap, they find a way. If they want to sign OBJ, they will. Sorry, that was kind of long for that, but essentially, it's the same take I gave. If they're going to win Super Bowls, it's going to be in spite of Matthew Stafford. He's going to put up all right stats. I mean, in that offense, it's very hard not to. You have to be a really bad quarterback. Even Jared Goff put up pretty good regular season stats. In fact, I think if we compared the regular season stats the past couple of years since that starting in that 2018 season for Goff and looking at Stafford's seasons, or I guess season right now, but in hindsight, it'll be multiple seasons. If you want to look that up right now, you can. I think it's going to be pretty similar numbers in the regular season. Now, Stafford is for sure a better quarterback than Goff, so I'm not going to say that. But I will say I don't think he's much better. If you're going to make me make a tier list of NFL quarterbacks, he's probably in the bottom of my A tier or the top of my B tier. I would have Garoppolo in like the middle of my B tier, and I'd have Mahomes in my S for context. So he's kind of in that worse than Dak Prescott range. Dak Prescott would probably be in smack dab in the middle of my A tier. So to me, he's in that 11 to 12 to 13 quarterback range. He's slightly better than Jared Goff, and he may be able to get you over the hump like Goff couldn't in 2018. But, and I know this is kind of whatever, but when we look back at that trade the Rams made to get Stafford, if they win a Super Bowl, it's not a bad trade, right? Because it got you a Super Bowl, maybe multiple, who knows? But I'm also going to say that no matter what, that's not a trade that would have been good for, in my opinion, probably 29 out of the 32, maybe 30 or 31 out of the 32 teams. That would not have been a good trade for them to make. So if anybody after the Rams win a Super Bowl want to say, "Wow, look at all these other teams that need quarterbacks that didn't want to do this deal." Like, I know it's a lot, but Stafford just won a Super Bowl. Well, no NFL team has three potentially going to be first ballot Hall of Famers on the defense. Not even close, probably. The most any defense probably has is maybe two, if I had to think about it off the top of my head. Probably not, though. I mean, but Miller, Donald, and Ramsey are probably all going to be first ballot Hall of Famers when we look back at it. Whether or not they deserve it, well, who knows? I think at least two of them deserve it, probably, in my opinion. But yeah, my take is he's not going to be in my Hall of Fame, and yeah.
Yeah, just for clarification, the best season Golf had was 32 and 12 touchdown interception. That was 2018. So, I mean, yeah, obviously really good year. But not. I mean, again, Stafford was 41-17. Again, similar, but at the same time, the better quarterback is Stafford, obviously. And
But what's the
honestly,
difference
just
between that? What's the difference between what were their difference in their records? Probably pretty similar.
well, the Rams did. They went 13-3 that year, but at the same time, was that really because of golf, or was that McVay slash the defense slash other factors on that team as well?
I think you could say
I'd
the
like to
exact
put
same thing about this year's Rams.
I think you can say it a little bit, but not as much. There's if golf was on this year's team and Stafford was on that year's team, I don't think I think the Stafford going to that year's team, there's not that much of a difference, if anything. And if golf was on this year's team, they'd be worse. They were 12-5 this year. Again, tougher division. I can't exactly remember what the division was then, but the Niners weren't good. The Cardinals weren't good that year. Only the Seahawks were good. So to be fair, it is a tougher division this year. But they would be worse than 12-5 if golf was the quarterback for this year. So when
I
you said the trade that, to get Stafford, it's worth it no matter what, to be honest. Obviously, if you win a Super Bowl, it's guaranteed worth it. But if you don't, it's still the risk. It's still the correct choice you had to make because you were never going to win another Super Bowl with golf. Again, you never even won one. You only been to one and you scored 3 points. So that trade was worth it 1,000% because you needed an upgraded quarterback. And if you really want to win now, you have to do that. And the fact they really didn't give up that much. I mean, they gave up 2 picks, or 3 picks, whatever it was, but I mean, they don't care about that. Like they want to win a Super Bowl. They don't care what their first round pick is in 2 years or whatever. So I think that trade was worth it no matter what, to be
I think
honest.
that's a ridiculous take because
But where are
let's
you going
just.
with Jared Goff? Like he's not a
I mean, I'm
franchise
not saying with
quarterback.
Jared Goff, but you could have. I mean, it's like if they don't want to win a Super Bowl, then that trade was obviously not worth it because you had a star-studded roster, and you thought you were going to get a top 10 quarterback, and it still didn't get you over the hump. So I'm not saying the idea of the trade was a bad trade, but if they don't win a Super Bowl, then the trade just wasn't worth it. I mean, you
But
gave up 2 first-round picks, which I know it's not a lot, in the grand scheme of things, I guess, but 2 first-round picks, that's your future. I mean, teams get to Super Bowl caliber rosters, 99% of them. This Rams team is probably the exception that didn't take a bunch of hits on first-round picks. If you don't hit on your first-round picks, and if you don't have them, you're not going to have a good future. There's really only a couple teams in the past 20 years that have been good without having first-round picks.
to be fair, technically that's not true because you can look at the Patriots, a team that had low first round picks or didn't even have a first round pick
No,
for a
but
lot of years,
here's
and they're
my
still good. Teams build their drafts on second, third, and fourth round picks, and I know you know that. But at the same time, obviously, if they win a championship, obviously it's worth it. If they don't, yeah, it's a little bit of a hit, but you were never going to win one with golf, guaranteed. So you might as well take the chance. And again, Stafford was really the only quarterback they could have went for. They tried to get Rodgers, but that obviously wasn't going to happen. He was the only one they could have gotten. So I think it's worth it to at least take the chance because again, there's a 50-50 chance that he can. With golf, it was a 100% chance you were never going to win another one.
So a couple things. Yes, I mean the draft you do build from second, third, and fourths. I don't disagree with that, but I will also say I don't agree on the Patriots thing. When they stopped hitting on first rounders, they fell off. I mean,
They won
when we
another
get
Super Bowl.
they won Super Bowls, but what I'm saying is 2014, 2015, 2014, 2016, that's when they hit their first rounders. That's when Chandler Jones hit his prime. That's when Hightower hit his prime. Without Hightower, they lose both of those Super Bowls. For sure, like 100%, no doubt about it. He was in the same draft as Chandler Jones, hits on first round picks. When they stopped hitting on picks, that's when we started to see the decline. And that's ultimately, in my opinion, why Brady left, is because if the roster was still as good as it was in 2014, there is no doubt about it. Brady is still on this roster, in my opinion. Or until he retired. He probably doesn't retire in general. There's a very good chance of it, in my opinion. But when that roster fell off, that's when we couldn't beat the Titans and we lost to them in the wild card round. It was talent. Talent was the issue. We had nothing. So I do think first round picks matter. The Broncos, to me, are the only other team I can think off the top of my head that really didn't need to hit on all their first rounders in order to compete. But that's because, they signed Ware, they got Peyton Manning in, they hit on Decker in like the third round, which was helpful, but they still had to hit on Demaryius Thomas and they still had to hit on Von Miller. So I still think in a lot of cases you need those first round picks. I'm not saying it was the wrong idea, but I do think a similar trade with the same idea, just not Stafford, would have been the right idea if they don't win a Super Bowl. That's my take. It maybe would have required sticking with Goff for another year. So you would have had to have Goff this year. So, but if you don't win the Super Bowl with Stafford this year, then it's ultimately the same thing, which would be probably making the divisional round and losing versus making the Super Bowl and losing. If they lose the Super Bowl, I think
I
if
mean, I'd rather lose in the Super Bowl than lose in the
I know
divisional
I
round,
would,
though.
but here's the thing, and you know, had they had waited another year, maybe they'd be able to get Russell Wilson this offseason. Maybe they'll be able to get
But
Aaron
maybe
Rodgers this
golf, but
offseason.
maybe golf's play would have went down from what it already was last year, which was not good last year. And as we saw in Detroit, even though it's worse roster, worse everything, he's not a good quarterback. It's just obvious. So if he's on the
But
Rams, he looks better, but he's really not. His stats still probably wouldn't have shown it. He probably had less value, and his contract. I don't know if the money would have been worse this year or what it was last year. I don't exactly know or remember, but I don't think you were getting a better quarterback than Stafford this year if you held on to golf than you
not
would have
this year.
last year.
Not this year,
Well,
but
that's what you
it's
just said. You just said they possibly could have
no,
got
no, no,
Wilson,
no, no, no,
possibly
no.
could have got someone else.
Yes, this year as in next year, like next offseason.
Yeah,
So this
going
year,
into next. Yeah, going into
yes. So
next year.
this season, you still
Yes.
would have had Goff, which to
Yes, I
me
know. That's what I'm
is.
saying.
But my take is, if you lose the Super Bowl this year, it's irrelevant because, in my opinion, with Goff this season, you probably lose one or two less games or more games, in my opinion, which means you're probably still playing the Cardinals in the wild card. You're just away instead of home, but judging off the game, you still win away, and then you probably end up losing to Tampa
But you're
because
not up.
Goff
You're
is
not
slightly
upgrading
worse.
it. You're not upgrading a
And then,
quarterback for next year, though.
and then this offseason, now again, this is hypothetical. If you could have been in the play for Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or maybe even Brady, maybe even Tom Brady. I'm just
Golf
saying
is not.
there were
Golf is not
options.
getting any of those guys if he were
But
to stay
Goff
on the
wasn't
Rams for
even
one more year.
Goff wasn't even an asset in the Lions trade. He really
Yeah, but
wasn't.
what
It was
team?
the
But
picks. The money had. You can't just. They weren't going to have Goff and Stafford.
But what team? What team would have looked at those picks again after another year? Again, whatever they go 10-7, whatever they would have done. Who knows? But golf again, even though golf's maybe not the main factor in the two first round picks, which I don't think really play that much of a factor. I think they're big but not huge. I think they're kind of the similar golf in the first round picks. But what other team would look at a package of golf, two first round picks, and a third round pick, which is what the trade was with Stafford? And again, I don't know what his contract would have been, so we have to see that. Would you really trade one? Are you trading in division, Russell Wilson? You 1,000% wouldn't. Rodgers, I guess there's a potential, but even still, they didn't want to do it with the Stafford years. So why would they want to do it again? Brady, I guess potentially, but at the same time, why would the Bucks even want that? They want golf and then the Brady and the Rams to go to two more Super Bowls or whatever. So that first round pick is absolutely worthless. I don't think that. I think the only time to trade golf was the time that they traded him, and the only guy available at that time was Matthew Stafford. I don't think if you were to wait on to him for another year, you would not have even gotten close to getting Matthew Stafford, and obviously even someone better than him.
I still think first off, if let's just say you did wait a year and somehow the Stafford didn't get traded somewhere else, so he stayed on the Lions. I still think you can make that trade for Stafford. Now, obviously, it would have been better to make it the year before, but that would be an in hindsight thing. I still think, even though it's a small chance you get Rodgers, it's a small chance you get Brady, it's a super small chance you get Russell Wilson. The only chance is pretty much if he gets cut entirely, but that probably wouldn't happen, or a buyout situation. I still think that small chance, if the Rams don't win the Super Bowl, is better than getting Stafford and not winning a Super Bowl. Now, it is reliant on the Rams not winning the Super Bowl. And I am picking them to win the Super Bowl. So I do think it is going to be a good trade. But that I also still think it is an overpay. I don't think that 99% of teams should make a trade like that for a quarterback that isn't certified top 5 elite S tier, whatever you want to call it. So, yeah. But if the Rams do win the Super Bowl, then, yeah, I do think it was a trade that had to be done.
Well, also, just one other thing. I think another thing that pushed that trade to happen at the time it did, and for the player that, that again was really the only guy available at that time, they went 9-7 2019 and then 10-6 in 2020. So I think if they would have stuck with golf another year, and I'm not saying McVay would have been fired, but I think there would have been a lot of questions. Because again, they maybe could have went 10-7 or 9-8 or whatever with golf, but that's not good enough for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations with a coach like that who'd been to a Super Bowl, and then to have 3 straight years of basically being 500, and then obviously didn't make the playoffs in 2019, and then got destroyed in the divisional round in 2020. I think there would have been a lot of questions surrounding that. So I think really they had to do that trade the time they did it because McVay was probably feeling pressure from up top, and he was probably feeling pressure himself because, I think he probably is going to be the head coach of this team for a long time, unless they go in like a tank mode, which is possible. Um, so I think he realized he had to make a move right away because things probably wouldn't have looked good for him potentially. Because again, they're never going to fire a player; they're going to fire a coach if anything, which probably would have been the wrong move with McVay. But 3 straight years of basically being 500 and losing the first round of the playoffs and or not making the playoffs, no matter who you are as a coach, you're probably going to be looked at as getting fired if you do that 3 straight years in a row in LA with that team with those players.
I mean, I don't disagree that there was pressure, but not nearly enough pressure, in my opinion, for him to even consider being fired by the management. I mean, he was at the level where we were questioning how elite he was, but it was still a debate. Who would you rather have, McVay or Shanahan? I think probably prior to this year, I think a lot of people preferred Shanahan. Well, but there were still plenty of people who preferred McVay. I probably was one of them. And now I think it's probably just flip flopped. I think you probably have 80% of the population that would prefer McVay and 20% prefer Shanahan. Or maybe it's 70-30 or 60-40. I don't know. But I still think, first off, I don't think the Rams would have been as bad as you think without Stafford. I still think Goff wins a lot of these games. Let's not forget, Stafford had a 3 or 4 game stretch where he threw multiple pick sixes and played really bad.
And he still finished with 41 touchdowns and 17 picks.
But what do you mean still? It happened.
Yes, but if you had Goff for this season, how many bad games does he have? I mean, it's not like again, last year he was 20-13 and he played 15 games. I mean, same offense, basically the same players.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to give you the fact that Cooper Kupp's jump from a tier good receiver to
Did that happen because Stafford was the quarterback or because Goff was
no,
the quarterback? I
because
think that Stafford had a huge.
Kupp had a
I think
insanely good season. And the offense got better. Robert Woods
and
developed. Van Jefferson developed. The offensive line was really
all right. Well,
stout.
to be fair, Woods was not having a great year before he got injured. That's a fact. He was not having as good as the years he
What,
was
production
the last
wise
couple
or
years. Production wise, yes. But the years this last couple years compared to before he got injured this year, he was not having as good as the years those. Cam Akers wasn't available all year. Last year he was available all year and was great. So that was a big part of their offense was the running game last year because of what Cam Akers was doing. Odell, by the time he came, and then Robert Woods obviously got injured, so you had that. But who's better, Robert Woods or Odell Beckham? I'd like to say Robert Woods, to be honest. At least in this offense, maybe as a pure one-on-one talent, I guess Odell's better. But in this offense, Robert Woods is better. I think Cooper Kupp got better because of Stafford. I think that's just totally fair. If you look at Cooper Kupp's stats over the last couple of years, I think he had one big year. I don't know if it was 2017, 2018, but I think he had under 1,000 receiving yards last year, and now he's at 1,900. I mean, you can say it's not all just because of the quarterback, but a lot of that has to do with the quarterback change. Stafford's just a better quarterback than Goff is.
I agree that he's better. I just don't agree that it's by a lot. And I do think that I'm willing to say 75% of Kupp's jump from a good to very good receiver to the best receiver in the league. I'm willing to say 75% of that is, first off, just him having an amazing year and him getting better as a player. Then I think you can attribute 25% of it to Stafford. That's my opinion. I think at worst the Rams are 2 more losses this year, which puts them at 10-7. I don't think they'd be 9-8. I really don't. I think they'd still be 10-7 or 11-6. I think there were plenty of games where Stafford maybe didn't directly cause them the game, but was a pretty big reason why they didn't win. I'm not telling you that Goff would have been better in those situations. I'm just telling you that Goff probably has 1 or 2 more of those types of games.
I just think that if you were to put all the situations that Stafford was in this year and you replace him with Goff, it'd look a lot worse, and you'd probably have a lot more, not a lot more losses, but a lot of those games that were close that, like, even though Stafford didn't play great in the game, he made the big throws when it happened. You think of the Ravens game, he was terrible in that game, but when he had to make big throws and make big conversions and get points, he did that at the end of the game. They stole that game. The Minnesota game, he was not good in that game, but when he had to make throws, he made throws. So I think if that's Goff in those situations, those throws are not being made. They're rather just incomplete passes, interceptions, or he just can't even drive him down the field. I just don't think Goff's that good of a quarterback. If you were to rank him, I mean, Stafford is at his highest, whatever, top 10 easily at his highest, I'm saying. But normally, 12, 11, somewhere in that range. Like, you would agree with that, somewhere around that top 10. Goff is, I mean, it's even top 20. I mean, he's not even a good quarterback at all. I mean, it showed that him being in a McVay offense with all those weapons, he's a good quarterback. He's still not even one of the best quarterbacks. And then obviously you put him on a Lions team that isn't good, he's not going to be good. But even if he's on an average team, is he even top 15? Is he even top 17? I don't even really think he is.
No, I think he's probably about on an average team. I think he's an average quarterback, and I think on a below average team he's a below average quarterback. I think on an above average team he's an above average quarterback. I don't think he's elevating his players, but I don't think he's necessarily making them significantly worse than their actual, you know, what their talent floor is. So but I also don't think Stafford is on his best days much better than the 10th best quarterback in the league. So I think the jump or the drop is probably from the 10th best quarterback to the 16th. I think that's about what it would be. And I think that results in about one or two less wins. That's what I think it does. About the big moment thing, I mean, maybe potentially, but I also think maybe Goff does make those plays. Maybe Goff doesn't play as bad in the first three quarters. I think when we're going to find out is that jump big enough to get you over the hump. It is Sunday, and I'm telling you. First off, I'm telling you, no, I don't think it is. The reason that I think the Rams will win is because of the massive gap in, the mismatch areas, which to me is the tackles, the guards, the center, the trenches. But if it is a close game and Stafford does have to make those throws to win, I mean, we're going to find out Sunday whether or not that gap. We're going to find out who's right or wrong Sunday, most likely, unless it is kind of like how I'm saying it, which is Stafford tries to lose the game, but the Rams still win. But if Stafford has to make big plays, then we'll find out who's right or wrong. I personally don't think the gap is very big. And I think he would have been better off waiting for an offseason to find a certified S tier, which would be Russell Wilson, Rodgers, Brady,
And
Watson.
like I said, the thing I said is that those guys would be impossible to get if you still had Golf on this team going into next year, trying to get them this offseason. I think that they'd be impossible to get if you were the Rams. I think they had to make the move when they made the move, and I think it was the right move. Again, would you have wanted to get a better quarterback, as in a Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers? Obviously, I mean they're the better quarterback, but I think with the guys who were available at the time, with what you had to give up, the timing and the situation that you were in, I think it was a good enough guy that you got. And again, we'll see on Sunday. Do I expect Matthew Stafford? Do I love Matthew Stafford? I don't think I ever said that, but I think he can make some big throws. Yes, is there going to be times where he's going to have, is he going to underthrow a 50-yard pass? We saw that against the Niners and that ball that should have been picked off by whatever his name was, Tart or Ward, whoever it was. But
That was, by the way, that was like I would not be surprised to see that in the Super Bowl, by the way. That was like a classic. I thought when that pass got thrown up in the air and for a solid 2 or 3 seconds, you clearly saw that was a clear interception. I thought, okay, this is the Stafford moment. This is the choke in Stafford, that you're not getting the Detroit out of Stafford. Luckily for the Rams, he drops the interception, literally pretty much a punt in the air. So it ended up not, being true, but
yeah, no, I mean, look, some quarterbacks need it to happen. I mean, you could probably go back to so many times where other quarterbacks have just thrown a complete interception in a huge moment of a game and they drop it or somehow it gets batted down or just something happens. There was a penalty that, you never saw, but you need luck to happen. I just think we'll see in this game. I just think that having Stafford for this team was the better move for the future. Even though that kind of sounds weird because you're banking all your future in the present. But for them to win a Super Bowl, which again, if they don't win a Super Bowl, then yeah, I mean, like we'll see what happens. Obviously, with no first round picks, obviously a lot of older guys on this team. We'll see what happens in the next 2 to 3 years. But for those 2 to 3 years, I just think it was the right move. I think it gave them the best chance at winning a Super Bowl in these next 3 years.
I would agree for this particular year, but the next after this year, I wouldn't be willing to agree, but we'll find out. And I really think, if the Rams don't win a Super Bowl this year, I mean, I know nobody needs to hear this, but it's not fun being a bad NFL team. There is literally no reason to watch the games, and being a fan of a bad sports team is the weirdest spot you can be in because you're almost rooting to lose games, and especially in the NFL, 17 games, there's no lottery. I mean, it's not fun to root for your team to lose. That's all I'm going to say, and there's no doubt about it. And I don't even think even Rams fans, the most biased Rams fans would not deny this. You're going to be bad in 4 years. At 4 to 5 years. You're going to be bad and you're probably going to be tanking. Because Stafford's probably going to be pretty old. Aaron Donald will be out of his prime. Miller will probably be retired. Ramsey's going to be out of his prime. Kupp probably beaten up and old by then. Robert Woods probably the same deal. OBJ probably not on the team. Jefferson may be a solid piece or whatever, but if they don't win a Super Bowl, then you're taking a massive L as a Rams fan.
Yeah. And that's something that I haven't really
And
had to do, and you haven't really had to do either. So
and
it's
by the
something that
way,
we better experience.
the Broncos, they are one of the out of the teams to last make the playoffs. They're like I think the third or second like last team to make the playoffs. I think the Jets are way back there since like 2010, but there's like at least 25 teams ahead of the Broncos. I think the last time the Broncos made the playoffs was the year they won the Super Bowl. I'm like 95% sure on that.
It
So,
was.
and listen,
But
everything
I
that
mean,
they did worked out. They got a
it's
Super
worth
Bowl.
it though.
It was
Yeah.
worth it, but by how much was it worth it? And they still got the Super Bowl. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's going to turn out like that, but it has potential to turn out even worse than it did for the Broncos. The Broncos were not a lock to win any sort of Super Bowl. They still had to earn it. They got it luckily, but if it does turn out worse than it did for the Broncos, the Rams fans, you're likely to be non-existent in 7 years if that's the case, because in a competitive market like LA, if you don't win the Super Bowl and then you're bad after 3 years for another probably 5 or 6 years because you don't have any draft picks to build off of, then I think that's when we start to even maybe hear rumblings of the LA Rams moving out of LA, because the Chargers have Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams and Derwin James, and maybe Staley works out. And obviously there's so many other sports teams there that, like, if it doesn't work out for the Rams, I legitimately could see them moving out of LA because
Well, I mean, that wouldn't happen, but
why not? I mean, whatever. It's kind of irrelevant. We can say that for a
well,
later day, but
yeah, I mean, they wouldn't move. That's a crazy take, but
I don't understand why that's crazy, but
well, I mean, they just built a $5 billion stadium. What's the point of leaving if they brought in the Chargers? It wasn't like they didn't go to LA with the Chargers. They brought the Chargers with them because the NFL said they had to. So there's no reason for the Rams to move. If anything, it's the Chargers who will move, which, again, neither of them even have a fan base. The Chargers have zero fan base. The Rams have maybe 20% of a fan base. So they just wouldn't move. But we can move off that. I think we should probably get to the bets by now. I mean, we talked about the game for a little while, then we kind of got off track. But I think we should go to the bets. Do we want to start with the game bets, and then the kind of stupid ones, or which order?
we can start with in the order of my notepad here. I have it starting off with some of the more playful prop bets. So I guess we can start with those. I'll ask you first, and if you have any other ones that you have, in front of you, feel free to ask them after I've asked mine or whatever. But we'll start with heads or tails. It's pretty simple. I'm going tails. Tails never fails.
I always go heads, so that's easy.
Gatorade Color. I haven't heard any big rumors about this year. Last year, I know it was what was it? I think the rumors were it was either like blue or purple, that they were like there was a report that there was.
I think
color.
purple was the report. Yeah.
What did it end up being? Did it end up being purple or blue?
I could
think
look.
It might have ended up being purple last year, but I could be wrong.
I could
No,
look.
I think it would have been orange. I think I
It
called it
was
last year.
no, last year was blue.
I think I called blue last year. I feel like I remember calling blue last year. I remember calling something and being right. But
I remember the year
I'm going
before.
purple.
I was gonna say the year before it was orange, and I do remember saying orange. Me and not we both said orange that year. But this year, I'm going with red. I believe it was red last year for the Chiefs, and it was blue for the Bucks. So obviously, if the Chiefs won, we would have seen red. But this year, I'm going red. I don't. Again, I'm assuming obviously the Rams are. I'm picking the Rams to win, so I'm assuming theirs will be red. I think the Bengals will probably be orange. I mean, it just makes sense. It feels like that it would be orange, but at the same time, it makes too much sense that it wouldn't be orange. But I think red's a good color for the Rams. I feel like it just kind of works, and I don't know. I think I saw the odds. I think it was plus 150. I think I saw something, so I kind of like those odds.
Listen, if you're for some reason betting on Gatorade Color, which first off I would not recommend unless you're knowing something other people don't, which by the way is against the law. But if you were to spend money on Gatorade Color, you're obviously doing it at some sort of odds. You're not betting heads up like 50-50. Like, is it going to be red or is it going to be purple? So provided the odds make sense, I'm going purple. I don't know. It's irrelevant. I don't care about this. It's stupid, but I have a feeling it's going to be purple this year. Purple's one of my favorite colors. So I'll go purple. I think it's an underrated Gatorade flavor. I think it's one of the best players in the game. I honestly think it beats blue. I think it's a better player than
Well,
blue.
that's crazy because either blue, cool blue or glacier freeze, whatever it is. I'm cool blue all the way. I think cool blue is easily the best Gatorade, flavor, color, whatever. But that's a ridiculous take
I
right there.
think glacier
Purple.
freeze is pretty good. Cool blue, I don't know. I think it's very
I think
basic.
cool blue is easily the best.
I think it's first off, I cannot think about cool blue without thinking about what it's going to do to my mouth. No matter what. I mean, and you can legitimately have blue lips for like 24 hours.
I mean,
Maybe not.
if you're drinking all over your lips or something, maybe. But if you just
No,
get it
I'm
in your
just
mouth,
I mean, maybe nowadays it's not the case, but when if you're younger and like you're not really, I don't know. Don't tell me you haven't seen a million kids with blue lips from blue Gatorade. And it probably happened to you and I at one point when we were younger. Maybe it doesn't happen nowadays as much, but your tongue's still going to get really blue. I think it matters. I think the taste is all right, but I think it's overrated. I think it's kind of flavorless. I think it's really sweet, but it's not like, it doesn't have like that sweet and like, not sour necessarily, but like, it doesn't have like that I don't know. It just is really sweet. And I don't like it as much. I mean, I like red. I think red's one of my favorites. I like purple. It's kind of whatever, but I have purple as my like sixth man of the year. If we're doing NBA awards for Gatorade, they're my sixth man of the year. Red's probably my MVP. I think Glacier Freeze, they're in my second team All NBA. They're not first team. They're not first team probably. I mean, there's not enough to have like 5 positions for each flavor. But have you had the strawberry Gatorade? Strawberry Gatorade? I've only ever seen it in like the smaller bottles, but that would actually be like my actual MVP. Strawberry Gatorade. It's red. It's not fruit punch. It's actually, to me, is like insanely good.
I don't think I've ever had it. I do like red. I like fruit punch Gatorade. I think that's pretty good. I like lemon lime. I would say cool blue, fruit punch. Well, fruit punch and lemon lime are 2 or 3, but I think cool blue is my number 1 for sure.
I don't like lemon lime. I don't know what it is. But anyways, we'll move off Gatorade flavors. So there was a little bit of a teaser about Peyton Manning bowling in a Michelob Ultra commercial. So he's going to bowl in a Michelob Ultra commercial. The question is it going to be a strike or not? Odds are pretty much that I think it's slightly like minus 125 strike, plus 110 not a strike. So pretty much 50-50. We'll call it whatever. Strike or no?
Well, I think there's another component to this. Is Eli going to be in this commercial? I think that plays a big factor. And it's something we probably don't know because if he is, they're trying to keep it secret. But if he is, if Eli's in this commercial, I don't think he bowls a strike. I think he rather completely misses or he misses by 1 pin. And then Eli comes in and, whatever, gets a strike or finishes the last pin to get the spare. I feel like something like that would happen. So to me, it really relies on if Eli's in the commercial. I'm going to assume that he is. So I'm going to say no, he does not. Bowl strike.
To me, I haven't thought about this too much. Literally just like 30 seconds pretty much. But to me, it comes down to if I'm making a commercial for Michelob Ultra, in what cases is Peyton Manning bowling a strike? Where is that falling in my commercial plans? To me, I have the only thing I can really think of, and again, 30 seconds of thought, is pretty much this guy drinks Michelob Ultra, he bowls a strike by Michelob Ultra. That's all I can think of for that. Whereas I can think of plenty of like more funny skits. Not plenty, but I can think of more funny skits involving Peyton Manning not bowling a strike. For instance, like you talked about Eli, I can think of Peyton Manning not bowling a strike and then Eli bowling a strike, or Peyton Manning not bowling a strike. I just think there's much more room for something funny or something playful with him not bowling a strike. And the only thing I can really think of for him bowling a strike is like bowling a strike and then taking a sip of Michelob Ultra and him trying to look cool or something. That's all I can really think of for him bowling a strike. So I'm going no strike as well. National Anthem over-under. The over-under is 1 minute 46 seconds. For any context, the singer is, I want to say, Mickey Gatson, I think is, or something. I forget the exact, like Mickey something, Mickey
Guyton or something?
Mickey Guyton. I don't remember even what I said, like Guyton or something. Gats. I don't know. Mickey Guyton. She's last sang the national anthem sometime like Memorial Day this year or something. Memorial Day last year maybe. It was 1 minute 27. So or minute 23 or minute 27. She blew through that thing. So the over-under this year is 1 minute 46. That's a lot lower than the past over-unders. Past over-unders have fallen around 1 minute 59-ish. and it's pretty consistent whether or not it's over under. It's a coin flip. I mean, it's going to be a coin flip this year too. I'm going under. I mean, to me, if you're going to sing a national anthem in a minute 27, I know this is a Super Bowl, so it's going to be longer. Don't get me wrong. It's going to be longer. But is it going to be 19 seconds longer? That's a lot of seconds for a national anthem. So I'm going under.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going over for that reason that it's going to be longer because it is a Super Bowl. I mean, there's how many of 100 million plus people that are watching in the U.S. across the world. I don't even know what the number is, but it's 100 plus million, maybe 200 million. It's your time. It's basically a performance of the biggest crowd of your life. I mean, that's literally what it is. So even if it's just, the national anthem, you try to, spread that out as long as you can. Minute 27, look, you're going to have to add 20 seconds, I guess. But you could do longer pauses. You could hold notes longer. That final note, they always hold for like 8 seconds, 10 seconds. So I think that she could probably, again, I've never really even heard her sing. I don't even know what she looks like. So I don't know if she is someone who can do that. I'm assuming she can. That's why she's doing the national anthem. But I'm going to say over. I feel like over is almost always the play because I feel like that, again, everyone holds out those notes longer because, again, it's your time to shine. You have, almost basically like 2 minutes to just show the world that, you could sing and you could hit these notes like that. And if she fails, that's obviously the funniest thing ever. So it's a good thing both ways.
I'm not a singer or whatever, but I will say I honestly think the national anthem is better when it's shorter. And it's not because I hate the national anthem or anything. It's just because I think everybody tries to drag it on, and everybody tries to hit some certain notes for really long periods of time or whatever, and almost kind of like you said, it's your spotlight.
Yeah.
Whatever event you're at, everybody's looking at you and listening to you for a solid minute plus. Have your time to shine. But at the same time, I think a really well done, short, concise, not over the top national anthem is one of the hardest things to do. And this is kind of stupid, but I'm going to compare it to Tom Brady. It's like comparing Rodgers to Brady. Rodgers is the quarterback that's going to take his time in the pocket, not take the check down, and really find every way to try and find a play down the field. Whereas Brady, unlike pretty much any other quarterback we've ever seen in history, is so okay with taking what's given to him that it's not even funny. 2001 Super Bowl, I know it's his, essentially his rookie year, but look at that. Look at pretty much any season. And I think I think if he was a national anthem singer, he's the guy singing the minute 20 national anthem at the Super Bowl. And Rodgers is singing like a Fergie style national anthem. This thing's going 2 minutes, 30 seconds. This is his spotlight. And honestly, I do think the shorter national anthem is the one that's harder to pull off because it's so easy to be like, this is my moment. I want it to be 2 minutes. I want to hit this note super whatever well or something. And, but anyways. We'll see. We just agree on national anthem over under. So someone's going to be right. Someone's going to be wrong. Next one.
I mean, we could push. It could be a minute 46.
You're right. Technically, okay. You're right. It could be a push. Odds are probably not. But anyway, next thing. If anybody watched the Pro Bowl, first off, my condolences. I'm sorry you had to watch the Pro Bowl. I only watched highlights plus. I mean, these clips were in the highlights, but some of the off-field stuff. I watched some of the skills competitions, but I did not watch the whole game. If you did watch the whole game, I am sorry. I hope you have recovered from that by now. But one of the highlights or lowlights or whatever of the Pro Bowl was Mac Jones running 50 yards down the field after a whistle was blown and doing a dance called the Gritty. It's one of those things that, Justin Jefferson maybe didn't invent it, but he's the name that is behind it, kind of like how Newton was behind the dab. He didn't invent the dab, but he was kind of the face behind that dance move, at least in the sports world. So yes or no? There's no odds to this, or at least I didn't see, but will a Gritty be performed at the Super Bowl by an actual player or coach or person on the field?
So it just has to be at least one time and the bed hits?
It just has to, it could be a 2-second Gritty, anything. Any sort of Gritty dance move.
Are we counting fans or no?
No.
Okay. I'd still probably say yes. Now, look, if Jamar Chase scores a touchdown, it's a guarantee. So that you can not book that, but, it's a good chance that he probably will score a touchdown or at least have the chance to. So that's a guarantee if he does. But I'll still say yes. It's too big of a stage not to do it for someone to do it. Whether after a win, after a touchdown, before the game, pregame warrant, whatever it is, I think it's a guarantee to happen. So I would say yes.
I'm going to say no. And the reason I'm going to say no is because I think Jamar Chase gets locked up for a large majority of the game. I do think he scores a touchdown, maybe two, But I
Well,
think
then it's
for
a
large,
guarantee then.
but I think the situation, and I think it's going to be later in the game towards the fourth quarter, which makes me think he's not going to do the gritty or hit the gritty or whatever you want to call it. I think in the first quarter, or second quarter, third quarter, yeah, I think it's, it's your time to celebrate, right? It's an early touchdown. The game's not people aren't sweating already. But in the fourth quarter, when you score a touchdown to whether you're at a deficit, which I think they probably will be, or whether it's to go ahead, I think you're so dialed in that moment that you're not really thinking of grittying. Whereas in the first quarter, I think, you have the team celebration. In the fourth quarter, I think you got your sights set on the Lombardi. I think your emotions are just being let out, just completely raw. And I don't think you're thinking, all right, let me hit the gritty for a highlight on the NFL Instagram real quick. I think in the first quarter, maybe. Fourth, no. And I think Jamar Chase has a big fourth quarter. So I'm going to say no.
All right.
Next kind of meme prop bet. We did national anthem. Okay. So next one, last one, at least for me, is will a non-quarterback throw a touchdown? I'm going to go no. Obviously that's the favorite. I don't see any trick plays going for touch. I see some trickery. Maybe we do see like a reverse sweep where, Odell tries to throw it to Van Jefferson or something, but I don't think it'll result in a touchdown. Maybe a completion, not a touchdown. I'm going to go no.
I think the reason that I'm going to go yes is because of Odell. We've seen it multiple times. He is a pretty good like thrower of the football. He can throw it. I wouldn't be surprised if they at least try it. And I don't know if it's going to work, obviously, but I think they'll for sure try it. Whether, again, they usually do it at like midfield, so it's obviously harder. You got to go 40, 50 yards for a touchdown. I'd like to probably see like, like almost like a Philly special type thing where, you're just bringing motion one side, then end around the other side, then someone's open. But I think they at least try it, and I'm going to go yes just because I want to see it happen. But I think they will for sure try it, though, definitely.
Sure. Okay. Okay, now we got three of the more in-game, these ones aren't as luck-based, although I would still be willing to say they're luck-based. So over under 48.5. This is my first. We're each giving three. Doesn't have to be the same. Could be the same. My first is over under 48.5. I'm going to go over. I think over is going to look grim the first 2 or 3 quarters. But I think when offenses click in the third or fourth, they're going to click and we're going to see some pretty good offensive gameplay. I think Burrow's going to start to hit. So I do think that the pace of the game is going to be Rams with a pretty solid 10 to 14 point lead from the second quarter on until we see a couple really solid drives by Burrow in the fourth to make it much closer. So I'm going to go over. But I do think it looks grim first 3 quarters.
Yeah. For my first one, I didn't touch an over under for the game. I went more specific. I went T. Higgins receiving yards. 69.5 was the number. I'm going to go over. I think, like you said, Chase is, we kind of talked about it. Chase was most likely going to have Ramsey on him, if not the entire game, for most of the game, if anything. I don't know if he'll travel with him all the time, but he'll at least be on him for most of the game. And then I would assume as the fourth quarter comes and it's a close game, he will be on him. But I think T. Higgins, he's honestly been, I guess you could say Chase has been Burrow's number 1 target, but T. Higgins is a really close number 2, if not, to be on the same level as Chase, as in, just target going to him all the time. As we saw in the Chiefs game, as soon as they started going to Higgins, that's when their offense kind of opened up and they were able to come back from 21-3. So I think over 69.5, I think he will. Other than Ramsey, the Rams secondary isn't really that good, to be honest. So I think he'll be able to have a big game. I don't know how big, but like I said, I'm going to assume he goes over 69.5.
So we didn't really talk about the game as much as I guess we wanted to, and this is something I'm going to bring up now, although maybe I should have brought it up earlier. We kind of went off the rails, though, with the whole thing. I actually don't think we're going to see as much man in this game from the Rams, and I think it's going to be a mistake. Not a fatal mistake, but a mistake that in hindsight, had they played more man, maybe the game wouldn't have gotten as close as it was because the talent deficit for the Bengals is more than 3 points, in my opinion. But I think they're gonna play a lot of zone, and they're just gonna bet on the fact that their pass rush gets there before Burrow can really get a read. I think while you can for sure, pre-snap is really important, and Burrow's I think solid pre-snap, especially for a guy in his second year. You're not, you can defenses. I think they're gonna do a great job of trying to disguise the defense so Burrow can't get a read on what exactly it's. You can get a read if it's man or zone, but what particular zone? I think they're gonna try to get it. really try to disguise that pre-snap. And as long as the pressure is good consistently throughout the game, which it should be, it should work out. I do think that there will be at some points, though, again, late in the game, a couple drives where the offensive line can get it together for just a little bit to make the game close. So, but I think in hindsight, they will say, had we played more man, maybe it's not 27-24, it's 34-15.
Yeah.
So I do think we see a good amount of zone, which maybe Ramsey won't like because he does want to take the matchup of the one-on-one versus Chase, or he does want to take the matchup of one-on-one versus Higgins while there's a second corner and safety over the top versus Chase. He wants to go one-on-one matchup. I'm not sure we're going to see as much of it, but yeah, I mean, that's not kind of what to your specific particular prop bet. It doesn't really have anything to do with it, but that's my take on what the Rams are going to do. My second prop bet is Joe Burrow passing yards 274.5. I'm going to go under, but I think it's going to be slightly under. I think he's going to pass for 260. So I do think it's going to be under, but not by much. And I think it's going to look pretty grim. I'm going to go over. I'm changing my mind here. I'm going to go over, but again, like I said, 260, 270. I think it's going to be, I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's going to be 280, 290. I think it's going to look very grim in the first half, like I said with the over-under, but I think eventually going to have a couple drives late in the game to make it close, and then we're going to see it go slightly over 274.5. I think we see 280, 290. I don't think we see anything significantly over 300. So I think in that 260 to 290 gap, this isn't something I would bet necessarily, because I do think it is going to be around 274, whether it's slightly under or slightly over. We'll find out, but I would go slightly over here.
Yeah, for my second one, I'm going Cooper Kupp, another receiver. Cooper Kupp over 105.5 receiving yards. Like I said, I'm going over with that number. Throughout this entire season, I know the number is 105, but I'm going to look at it as an under 90 yards. He only went under 90 yards 2 times this entire season, and both of them were against the Cardinals. Other than that, he went at least 90 yards, and then he had 96, 92, 95, 96, 95. Everything else was over 100 yards. So even there's games where he's quiet. He really maybe he has like 40 yards, 50 yards, and it's getting, end of the third quarter. And then he just goes for 70, 80 yards in that fourth quarter. So it just almost seems like a lock that he's going to go over 105. Like the only way he doesn't is if the Rams are just like, they just get destroyed in this game. Like just absolutely nothing is going for them. And they basically did what the Chiefs did last year where they get 3 field goals and just nothing works. I don't see that happening. So I'm going to assume they move the ball, they get yards, they get points. And like I said, it's almost a guarantee that Kupp goes 105 over. And the only time he's ever played the Bengals, 2019, he had 7 catches for 220 yards and a touchdown. So I know it's a different team, both teams obviously, but just for previous experience, I guess obviously that works in my favor too.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't know where to go with that because I could see it both ways. I could see under, I could see over. Mine is Jamar Chase receiving yards 79.5. I'm going over, and I feel pretty confident in Jamar Chase 79.5 over. I know Ramsey's a thing, but like I said, even if they do play a lot of man, I don't think we see a lot of Ramsey on Chase. I think we see a lot of Ramsey on T. Higgins. I really do. I just maybe I think we see him on anybody else other than Jamar Chase. I think we're going to see him on Chase for a little bit maybe, but I think it's going to be a lot of zone and in the places where they do play man. And if they do happen to play man more than I think, and I am wrong about my zone take, then I do think we see Ramsey on Higgins a lot, maybe even on Uzama. If Uzama is not completely a decoy on Sunday, which we'll find out, but if he is effective and he starts to exploit that Rams defense a bit, maybe we see Ramsey go man-to-man with Uzama just for a few plays here and there to try and see if they can do something if Uzama does have a big first half, which I'm not saying is going to happen, but I do think we see not a lot of Ramsey on Chase. And I think it's going to, even with that being said, I don't think he's going to have a big day or anything. I do think it's going to look kind of grim in the first few quarters where he's on pace to maybe break it, maybe not, be pretty close around that 79.5. But again, I think later in the game, defenses get tired out, especially in the Super Bowl. That is the game that is known for being extremely tiring, where you almost forget to kind of pace yourself throughout that game. And a lot of first-time players find themselves gassed by the fourth quarter. And even non-first-time players. I mean, plenty of Super Bowls, especially ones with big comebacks, we see at the end of the games, defenses are just gassed. I mean, Mahomes has come back against the 49ers. Patriots comebacks in 2016 and 2014. Those defenses, so gassed. Even though that Legion of Boom was probably the best defense of the 21st century, there was still room to have a lot of yardage in that. I think we see Jamar Chase with a couple big third down conversions, and I think that gets him slightly over the 79.5. I'll call it 90 yards on the game.
All right, that's your final, prop bet for the game. My final one, which I'm also going to say my Super Bowl MVP in this, also because I kind of have to go to class in a little bit. But for my final bet, I'm going to go Aaron Donald sacks. The over/under is only half a sack. I'm hammering that over. I think, and like I said, I'm picking my Super Bowl MVP in this pick because it is Aaron Donald. I believe he has a big game. I don't know exactly what that stat line looks like, but even if it's only, again, as long as he has over half a sack, which is possible he could push that. Obviously, you can get half a sack, but I'm assuming he at least gets a full sack. I think probably ends up with 1.5 sacks. But even it's maybe not like he has 4 sacks in this game. I think he just has a huge impact on the game. Like, the Bengals, they can't get the run game going. Again, Mixon had 1,200 yards this year, or 1,300, whatever it was. So again, the run game is a big part of the game, despite what Burrow does in the passing game. I think Donald, disrupts the run. He has a lot of tackles for losses. He has QB hits, pressures. Even if it's not sacks, he just makes big plays, key situations. Like we saw against the Niners, that Garoppolo random behind the back pass or whatever, Donald blew up the inside on that play. I mean, the reason Garoppolo had to escape left and do whatever he did was because Donald absolutely blew up that play. So when he wants to go get a sack or wants to make a big play, he can. And I'm going to assume that, after the last Super Bowl that he was in, he obviously, the defense played well, but not well enough. I'm going to assume that he has a big impact in this game. And like I said, he's my Super Bowl MVP for this game.
So I'm going to give my Super Bowl MVP as well. I'm going similar to you, but I'm not the same person. I'm going Von Miller. And the reason I'm going Von Miller is, first off, we've seen Von Miller just tear it up these past few games. Like a lot of veterans in general, and specifically pass rushing veterans, they really have to, what's the word I'm looking for? Pace themselves over the course of the year. They have to throttle it sometimes. They cannot go 100% every single down at all. Earlier in their career, maybe you go downs 1 through 3, but at Von Miller's point of his career, especially with the injuries he's had, that's not the case in the regular season, but we've seen him just light it up the past few weeks. I think he's played really well. I think we see a game similar to 2015, and I think we see some really insane plays by Von Miller. I think he gets 2 sacks. I think he's getting pressure the whole game. I think Donald's going to be the same way too, but I think based off sacks and who gets them, I think Miller will get the MVP. Although I would say that stats are not an important stat really, but that's the stat that really matters for winning the Super Bowl MVP. And I do think even regardless of the sacks, Miller's impact on the game will be so immense that I think he has to get it. And like I said earlier, I don't think it's going to be Stafford. The only way Stafford wins it is if there is nobody with an impressive stat line in the Rams. And even though Stafford does not have a good game, it's like by default just goes to the quarterback, which I don't think is going to happen. But that's the only way I think Stafford wins it. I do not think he wins it because of a good performance. So I want to make that clear.
Yep. But we'll see. Like we said, we both picked Rams. I was 28-24. You were 27-24. You had Miller as your MVP. I had Donald as my MVP. We gave our prop bets on the field, off the field. The last thing to do is just to watch the game on Sunday, see what happens, and then come back with another episode talking about the Super Bowl, which will be the end of the NFL season, which seems crazy that, again, we're already at the end of the NFL season, but that is what's going to happen after Sunday at 9:30 or 10 o'clock, whenever the game ends.
Yeah, and depending on how the game goes, I think we may live stream this episode on YouTube, so if you're watching this and hear this, feel free to tune in 20 minutes after the Super Bowl is over, 30 minutes or whatever it happens to be. We may go live. If it's a horrible game, don't expect it. But if it is a super close game, I think there is a chance we go live. Maybe not right after because, who knows what we're both doing for the Super Bowl. But typically, it's not, you don't treat the Super Bowl the same as you do any regular Sunday 1 p.m. game. That's pretty obvious, right? It's like almost an American holiday at this point, the Super Bowl. So,
yeah.
But provided we can, and it's a good game, we'll probably be here live streaming it Sunday night. So feel free to tune into that. I don't want to hold us in here any longer. Brandon's got class. We both have stuff to do throughout the day. So appreciate everybody for watching. Check out everything in the description, all that. Even though we both picked the Rams, one of us will be right and one of us will be wrong come Sunday night. At least I believe. Maybe not 100% wrong or 100% right, but one of us will be on the better side and one of us will be on the worse side, even though we both picked the Rams, which I think is interesting. So we'll be back Sunday night, Monday morning. Goodbye.